Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 30th of May 2025. The first chart is the parent index. This is the S&P ASX 200 index, the XJO. You can see price rose slightly this week. We'll put in some lines so you can see where we've been. The market came back from this level. Here's the highs of the range up here. The market came back mostly in sympathy with overseas markets. I don't think there was any real intent to come back initially, but overseas markets pulled back and our market pulled back in sympathy with them. You can see on this bar the very high volume and the close well off the week's lows. This is buying support coming in here, quite strong buying support. It went on for 2 more weeks here before price pushed out the top. Here there was 1 week consolidation in response, and since then we've really had 3 weeks of consolidation and absorption. The market hasn't shown any real intent to push higher. It's moved higher with a pressing nature and does remain below the highs of the range at this point in time. The market does look well placed to make an attempt to push higher and even challenge those highs at some point, and it's possibly just waiting for more favourable trading conditions to emerge before it makes that attempt. This is the mid-cap sector, and they pushed higher with a very narrow spread this week. Here's the pullback we saw earlier on the parent index. Here's the highs of the range. The buying support came in on this bar in a similar fashion. We had to push higher, and in a similar fashion, this market is absorbing supply and consolidating as it pushes higher. Volume was a little above the average with a very narrow spread. We had very high volume on Friday. If we look back, there's the daily chart. You can see the very high volume that came through on Friday. It was the last day of the month, and we'll have to wait and see just what the response is next week, because it's likely that'll be significantly good or significantly bad. We'll have to wait for the response. This is back to the parent index. You can see the same thing here. Very, very high volume on Friday with a relatively narrow spread. This is either going to be serious buying, or supplies really emerged in a big way. It's likely to be the former, but we'll just wait and see and have confirmation of that next week. But very, very high volumes on Friday, because for most of the week this week, the markets were trading on quite low volumes, and then all of a sudden, big volume came in late on Friday. So we'll watch for that next week. This is the small ordinary sector, similar to the larger 2 indexes. We saw buying support emerge down here on this bar. Volume wasn't quite as large, but it was still strong. We've had 2 weeks consolidation and a modest push higher this week up to the highs of the range. All these markets look fairly well placed to make an attempt to push higher and challenge these highs of the range levels when trading conditions are more favourable. This is the financial sector, easily the ASX's largest sector. You'll notice on this chart, the pullback here was nowhere near as deep. Buying support did come in, quite strongly suggested by the very high volume. Price pushed out. A week's consolidation, and we've had a period of consolidation here, or absorption. There's the highs of the range. This market also looks well placed to challenge that level when the opportunity is deemed favourable. This is the ASX metals and mining subsector, and the level here is the level the price is currently working at. You can see the buying support came in similar to the other markets, although the volume suggests it wasn't quite as strong here. Price has pushed up. It spent the last 2 weeks in consolidation mode right at this important level. The next level comes through here, like this. So it's a bit of a complex area. I call these areas complex when there's two important levels close to each other. So a challenge here will put price straight into this level or very close to it. So it may take a little more work, as it has done here with 2 weeks of absorption prior to any serious challenge. There's often two ways the markets attack this. They either absorb their way through, like this, or they charge through both levels all at once, like this. And then there's a period of consolidation in response above the second level. We'll just see how the market tackles that. But at this point, the market's well placed to push higher, but there's another level that comes through very close to it. And that's causing a little bit of an issue, and the market's spending a little extra time absorbing supply before it issues any sort of serious challenge to the level it's working at right now, which is the 5,500 level on this chart. This is the ASX gold sector, and we've had a little pullback more recently after some weakness emerged here, mostly in the gold market itself. Buying support emerged almost straight away, and that was confirmed by an up bar in response. Price pulled back a second time here, mostly in line with the gold market itself. Buying support emerged off the lows here, confirmed the following week with an up bar in response. And this week, price has pushed above the highs of this mini range here. There was a test for supply below the previous bar's close initially, and then a push higher later in the week. You've got the highs of the range coming through up here. So you probably see a little bit of consolidation through there prior to a challenge to that level, if supported by the gold market overall. This is the ASX energy sector. Just put a few lines in here. Price was very weak through here. Buying support came in on this bar, high volume, closed well off that week's lows. 2 weeks of consolidation in response before the market pushed higher. Test for supply after the second week, and the next push higher. Test for supply and absorption, and then a push higher this week, albeit modestly, as the market is really moving up towards these highs here, where it's going to take a little bit more effort to move through, and this line here will go through like this as well. So it's a bit of a complex area here too. Does the market do it in stages, or does the market attempt to roar through both levels at the same time? We'll just have to watch. This market is often a bit of a grinder, so you may find that the market moves more like this and doesn't really try to charge through, and instead absorbs its way through in some fashion like that. This is the healthcare sector, and we had the highs of the range coming through right up here, like that. Market broke down. There was an attempt to support the market through here. Market broke down again. Price did see some buying support come in off the lows here, albeit modest at the time. Then there was 2 weeks of consolidation in response before price pushed higher. And then since then, this market has been in consolidation mode. You've got a bit of a complex level here too for the market to deal with. But it's pulled back towards the lows of that week here, and then it's traded in consolidation and absorption mode through here. So this is all consolidation over the last 4 weeks. It's a bit of a deeper consolidation than you would like to see, than maybe considered ideal. The shallower and briefer the consolidation, the stronger the market. So it's taken 4 weeks, hasn't really challenged the lows of this stronger widespread up bar, but the market's taking its time, so it's not particularly strong. But there's a complex area just above, which is going to take a little bit of an effort to move through, no matter if the market attempts to absorb its way through or if it attempts to charge through. Either way, it's going to take a bit of effort. I would expect there will be some supply drawn out from these bars that overlap next to each other. The congestion in here is likely to hold some supply. So the market is attempting to absorb what supply it can at the moment prior to any serious attempt to push higher. This is the ASX industrial sector. You'll note on this chart how narrow the pullback was here compared to some of the other charts we've looked at. This market had good buying support in it, which was defending against supply when the overall market was pulling back. So the pullback overall, well, I hardly saw anything for the first 3 weeks here. It really showed a reluctance to move lower before the market did dip here and recovered almost immediately. We saw buying support come in on this bar for sure. Here is higher volume. And then the market, after 2 weeks of consolidation and absorption, pushed higher. We've got the new mini highs of the range up here. Last week we saw consolidation and absorption, a test for supply effectively. And this week, a further test for supply below the previous bar's close, and then a push up higher later in the week. So this market does look well placed to issue a challenge to these highs, an attempt to push higher again, and it will do so when trading conditions are more favourable. This is the ASX consumer staples, supermarkets to a large degree in Australia, and we've got the highs of the range coming up here. You can see that the market did, this is like a zone of resistance up here, and the market did move into this zone, but it pulled back almost immediately. We just put in some lines through here. The market did consolidate down here, test for supply, push higher. There was a period of consolidation through here as well. The market pushed up to the highs of the range, pulled back. In the last 2 weeks, the market is consolidating again, attempting to absorb supply and defending against supply down here at the lows of this down bar. This market's quite a way off the highs of the range now, so it's perhaps not as strong as some of the other markets we've looked at, but all the same, there is an attempt to defend against supply down here. It's reluctant to move lower. It would like to move higher, but it's being dragged along with the rest of the market rather than leading. This is the ASX consumer discretionary, and highs of the range come through here. Buying support on this bar, and after 2 weeks of consolidation, price pushed higher. Here's the highs of the little mini range here. You can see over the last month, this market's also been in consolidation and absorption mode, and it looks well placed to push up towards the highs of the range, given reasonable trading conditions. This is the ASX property sector, and similar to those other charts, you can see the market's been trading in consolidation mode here as well. Here was your pullback. The market was a bit reluctant to move lower through here, that finally did break down. Buying support came in on this bar. Here's the high volume to show that it was significant. You had 2 weeks consolidation in response, and the market then pushed higher. And since then, we've had a month of consolidation here sideways. This congestion to the left here is likely to hold some supply, make it difficult for the market. So it's absorbing supply that's coming from the left to a large degree. Highs of the range probably come through there, and there'll be supply drawn out from this level for sure. So the market's looking like it's going to grind higher here, probably in this fashion. Just continue what it's been doing over the last period, grinding higher. It makes it a bit easier for the market to do that rather than a great big charge higher, which takes a lot of effort to force its way higher. It's more difficult. Just back to the parent index quickly. This is the XJO, the S&P ASX 200 index. Now you've seen all the other charts. You can see the serious pullback here, mostly in sympathy with overseas markets. Here's the highs of the range. The buying support that came in on this bar was strong, there's no doubt. You had 2 weeks of consolidation. This is mopping up the supply. Here was the breakout above that level. Nice push higher. In 1 week's consolidation here. And since then, the market's been in absorption mode, just grinding its way up past this congestion to the left. And I expect this market will make an attempt to push up to the highs of the range, given any sort of favourable trading conditions next week. Now, it might just grind its way up as it has been doing and do this next week and then this the week after, but we'll see. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week. See ya.